In A Song of Ice and Fire, characters' introduction tell us a lot about how their story will end. We get introduced to Stannis in both the prologue and Davos 1, A Clash of Kings. And in Davos 2, Melisandre tells us a little about how the Red God's power work. Taking a critical look at Stannis' introduction is important because in Dance, Stannis repeats his story, and also Aegon's story gets introduced as a foil for Stannis. This is an argument examining Stannis' introduction, questioning everything we get told about him, from Stannis' claim to the Iron Throne to his possible death by the others, Dragonstone being conquered by the Targaryens, and the Red God's power, while comparing Stannis' story in Clash to Aegon's story in Dance, and giving a clear defense for why Renly crowned himself. 1. Stannis has no claim to the Iron Throne. A Clash of Kings starts with Stannis declaring himself to be the rightful king after Robert, because all of Cersei's children are bastards. This comes directly after Ned finding proof to support Stannis' claim. However, unlike Ned, Stannis have no reason to believe or a way to prove that Cersei's children are bastards. Stannis listened to gossip and believed it because he wanted to be the king. He looked with Jon Arryn for Gendry, a boy Robert never acknowledged to be his son, and listened to the way people describe Edric Storm, a boy he never seen. All of what Stannis have to support his claim is Joffrey, Tommen and Myrcella looking like their mother. Stannis being with Jon Arryn made the reader think that he might know about the book both Ned and Jon Arryn had, that describe multiple children from Lannister and Baratheon marriages. But we know that Stannis didn't know about the book, because the book was enough evidence for Ned to think that he can remove Joff from the throne, and declaring him a bastard in the throne room. While Stannis' proof is to show Edric Storm and how people will look at him and think Joff is a bastard, which is not a proof. Edric's mother is not a Lannister, so there is no comparison. Also, Robb Arryn didn't look like his father. All the Stark kids except Arya look like their mother. Anyone who will accept that Joff is a bastard because he looked like his mother must accept that all the children who look like their mothers are bastards, which is stupid. The fact that Stannis is right about Cersei's children being bastards doesn't change that he have no proof for it or a reason to even think that they might be bastards from the start. Stannis' claim is so bad that Lord Valerian told him, "Swords will determine who will sit the Iron Throne, not claims." Also, Stannis knows about Gendry, and he knows Cersei enough to know she will kill Robert's children if they might be used against hers. Yet, he left Gendry in King's Landing, knowing he will make a claim that Joffrey is a bastard because Robert's children should look like him. A claim that will get Gendry killed. He either thought that Gendry's death might help his claim, or didn't care about killing his nephew. 2. Stannis is a bad strategist. All of the POV characters keep thinking that Stannis is a great war leader, and all of the POV characters are stupid. Stannis is literally the Sea Lord's cat. People think he must be great, and so no one actually sits and wonder about how good his accomplishments really are. He held Storm's End in Robert's rebellion. After Randyll Tarly defeated Robert, Lord Tyrell took the Reach's army and besieged Storm's End. They didn't even try to storm the castle. They just wanted to stay out of a war that didn't involve them. If the Targaryen won, they defeated Robert and kept Storm's End out of the war. And if Robert won, they didn't take the castle and didn't kill anyone important. Stannis held the castle against an army that didn't even try. Yet he almost starved. He needed to be saved by Davos. because he didn't think about food before the siege started. He just sat in a castle, didn't try to fight or find a way to feed his people. Stannis took Dragonstone from the Targaryens. Stannis went to Dragonstone after King's Landing have already fallen. Dragonstone was standing alone. Inside the castle, people were already planning to sell Dany and Viserys to Stannis, even before he arrived. The Loyalists would never consider taking the king and his only heir in one ship at night with the storms around them and no protection, if they didn't think that everyone have already turned. He already had people inside of the castle wanting to join him, and still didn't manage to capture Dany and Viserys. Robert, the man who said, "How can he win against someone he can't hit?" thought someone else would have captured them. Stannis destroyed the Greyjoy's fleet in Balon's rebellion. First, the Ironborn were standing alone against the power of all the Seven Kingdoms combined. Even Jorah won honors in that rebellion. Secondly, the Ironborn are both really weak and stupid in the same time. We don't know everything that happened in the rebellion, but the Ironborn were under the same leadership in both Balon's rebellion and the War of the Five Kings. So, let's see their actions in the war. They attacked the north, when Robb took most of their fighting men south. Winterfell was controlled by a crippled child, and at best a stupid castellan. Yet the Ironborn were slaughtered by the Northmen, even after Winterfell has fallen, leaving the north with no leadership. Balon's plan was to attack the north first, and then send a message to the Lannisters telling them to acknowledge him as a king in the Iron Islands and the north, because he attacked the Starks. Asha had a great plan to work with the north after they refused Robb from the start, attacked the north, and her brother killed Bran and Rickon, and burned down Winterfell. Euron, the only not stupid Greyjoy, attacked the Reach, fully knowing that he can't hold it. He took everything he can and then left the castles to his brother's men, so they will be killed instead of him. And Victarion didn't stop his men from falling in that trap. Victarion went to Essos, thinking he will kidnap Dany, the queen who is considered as a god by most of her followers, and most people in Essos have a prophecy they think Dany will fulfill. Plus, she has 3 dragons and an army. He thinks he will go inside, force her to wed him, take a dragon and rule in her place, while she just sit aside and give him children. Even though he knows Euron, he trusted the dragon horn Euron gave him, without thinking that Euron might have just wanted to raid the Reach, take everything valuable and leave the Ironborn to be killed instead of him. Victarion being there would make it hard for him to leave the Ironborn behind. Stannis winning against the Ironborn doesn't make him a good strategist. It just makes him capable of outsmarting stupid people. He smashed Mance's army. The Free Folk were running away. Most of the people in Mance's host were women and children. Less than half of the host were fighters. On top of that, they had no good weapons or armor. Stannis attacked them with an organized army that had good steel and horses, when the Free Folk were stuck between the wall in front of them and the others behind them. Throughout the story, we never see Stannis with a good war plan. The only times he actually wins is when he's fighting against stupid people, destroying a host made mostly by women and children, and staying down in a castle, allowing his people to starve, without trying to do anything against an army that didn't even try. 3. Stannis' southern and northern policies, and his similarities to Robert. Throughout the story, Stannis keeps comparing himself to Robert, pointing out the differences between them. Robert will attack without thinking, and win through sheer strength. He will get his enemies to join him instead of getting revenge, and he is surrounded by people who love him and will never see his flaws. Knowing this about Robert, we can see that they are not opposites. Stannis is just a shitty version of Robert. Stannis keeps Maester Cresson and Davos around him. Both men are blindly in love with him and justify everything he do, or throw the blame on someone else. And Stannis keeps the lords he doesn't respect or consider competent around him because they see his victory in the fire. Both men never learn from their mistakes, but in Robert's case, he always won, so he doesn't have to. Stannis keeps losing and repeating the same mistake over and over again. He didn't think about the food in Storm's End and almost starved to death if not for a smuggler feeling sad for him. He made the same mistake by going to war in Dragonstone without thinking about food. Then he went north in winter and didn't think about food, even though he is with Jon. And almost all of Jon's story revolves around the lack of food. He burned the Seven in Dragonstone, and the Sept and the Godswood in Storm's End, kidnapped Septons to force them to write messages for him that told the whole world he is no longer a worshipper of the Seven, forced his men in Dragonstone to worship the Red God instead of the Seven, and gave living men to the fire. He didn't stay south long enough to face the Faith being rearmed. They will never allow a man who did these things to live. But he went north and repeated all of his mistakes. He forced the free folk to burn their gods and worship R'hllor, tried to make them join his army, and gave living men to the fire. But, unlike in the south, where his men were not devout worshippers of the Seven, the Northerners are. The mountain clans want to give human sacrifices to the old gods. They follow Stannis, without knowing that he forced the free folk to burn the weirwood, and he burned the godswood in Storm's End. At the end of Dance, Stannis was stuck in a snowstorm with Southerners who look down on the North and want to give human sacrifices to R'hllor, while they are close to a weirwood tree that a lot of R'hllor worshippers will want to burn as a false god, just like they did in Storm's End. The Southerners were not devout to the Seven, so they might think that the Northmen will just be forced to accept them burning the gods. If both Axel Florent and Stannis see things in the fire, then there is no reason for their devout men who accept burning living men not to see things in the fire. Another mistake Stannis do is waiting too long. Stannis waited in Storm's End and was stuck inside of it, instead of trying to fight. He waited too long to make his claim to the Iron Throne. At the time Stannis made his claim, both Robb and Renly were kings, even though he thinks that he have a good claim. And at the end of Dance, he is waiting too long in the storm. Robert would have just attacked when he's strong, but Stannis is waiting and letting his men freeze, knowing that Roose can just wait in Winterfell for him to die. Robert put the throne in debt because of his parties, without thinking about how will he pay it. Stannis hired Saldar's son and promised to pay him when he take King's Landing, fully knowing that he won't be able to pay the pirate. Stannis sat in the small council for years, the same council that told Ned the first day he arrived that the throne is in debt. Stannis brought one of the strongest pirates to the Seven Kingdoms, knowing that he can't pay him, and sat there in Dragonstone talking about how they should call Jaime Sir because he's a knight after all, and not about how will he pay Saldar's son, or what will Saldar's son do when he realized that he lost men and ships and won't be paid. Saldar's son point out that he is not trying to impress anyone, unlike the lords, who are trying to impress Stannis by being extra manly with everything, from their clothes to their war plans, and just hope shit goes their way. Saldar-san wears his silks and tells Stannis the truth because he wants Stannis to win so he can be paid. Now, Robert had Littlefinger to deal with his debt, but Stannis has no one. So, how will Saldar-san get his money after leaving Stannis? Well, there is a way for him to make even more money than what Stannis promised him. Dany smashed the slave trade, and the free cities are desperate for new slaves. Saldar-san told Davos little boys are starving in the streets of King's Landing. Little boys are easier to capture than adults and can't fight back. He can fill his ships with a lot of them, and they are really expensive, especially after Dany took all the good Unsullieds. Stannis did the same mistake about money in the north when he accepted Robert and Joffrey's debt to sign with the Iron Bank. He knows the throne is broke and didn't think about how will he pay it. Even Jon Snow, who never been out of the north and knows very little about the south, knows the Iron Bank will be paid. He immediately thinks that Stannis just won the throne because Tommen didn't pay. Stannis won't be able to pay the Iron Bank too, not only because the throne is broke, but he can't raise taxes because it is winter and everyone is starving. The Starks and the Lannisters burnt everyone's food, so everyone will need all of their money for food. If Stannis wants to take money from the lords, it will immediately cause a rebellion. The Iron Bank loaned Jon money. Now we don't know if they know about Robb's will or Jon's parentage, but Jon thinks that the Iron Bank will always find a lost prince to take the place of whoever won't pay their debt. The Iron Bank giving Jon a loan might be a backup plan for if Stannis loses or won't pay. The faceless men in Bravos spy on everyone, from the Sea Lord to thieving children in the street. And the Sea Lord hires his first sword to see lies and deception from someone in his position. Even if they don't work with the faceless men, they probably have a spying network around the kingdoms that are indebted to them. Just like Stannis is a shitty version of Robert, Davos is a poor and shitty version of Ned. On surface, Davos looked like a man that Stannis can rely on. Making Davos his hand made Stannis look really good, but Davos is no Ned. Davos tells Stannis the truth, but he never argues for what he thinks. He thinks that they are too few. They will lose. Stannis' claim on a throne is weak, and his victory is impossible. But he never challenges Stannis with any of these. He lets Stannis compare gods to birds and drop any issue when Stannis gets mad or tell him to be quiet. He argues with Stannis and give him advice as a friend, not in war council, not when they are planning to do anything. He keeps quiet in the times when his voice is actually needed. Davos always bend and stop arguing for his opinion the moment Stannis gets angry. Sure, he saved Eric and told Stannis to go north, but saving a boy from being burnt alive doesn't make Davos better than most. And Stannis didn't truly want to burn him. Still, Davos stole the boy from Stannis. He didn't get him to change his mind. Foreshadowing for the death of Stannis and his family. Burning the Seven is a representation for Stannis' death. When Melisandre burns the Seven, she calls, "Lord, we offer you these false gods," in a ceremony that is made to give a fake Lightbringer to Stannis, a fake Azra Ahai. The seven who are one, 7 people on one side. Stannis is the father, an unjust ruler who will die first. Selyse is a cruel, uncaring, unmerciful mother who only thinks about power and people obeying her. The mother had a sword thrust into her heart, with its leathery grip on fire, while the flames licking her face. Selyse is at the wall, where Jon keeps dead men in the cellars, hoping for them to wake. Jon got stabbed, and there might be an attack by the others at any time. Both the Night's Watch and the Free Folk knows that fire kills the dead. It won't be hard to get a sword on fire. Selyse keep looking down on the Northerners and demanding from Jon to just let the Free Folk die. In truth, even the Southerners are not Selyse's friend. They follow the Red God because they want power. And if Stannis is dead, they might just want to get revenge for their gods. The warrior is Patchface. He is the one who declared he will lead the ranging in Castle Black, when everyone was scared to go. He is a pathetic version of a warrior, but he is the only one who actually cared about Shireen. Shireen is the maiden, an ugly little girl who can give a deadly disease to anyone. She will die burning, trying to embrace or run to the warrior, the only one who might save her. Davos is the smith. He is trying to bring allies to Stannis, in a clash when the Stormlords rejected him. And in Dance, he is trying to bring war to a peaceful land, because of a lost cause. And he failed. Manderly wants Rickon to support Stannis, and there is no way Davos could ever manage to get him. He will need to convince the Northerners to give the king in the north to Stannis' hand, a king who gave living men to the fire. All of what his men talk about is burning people with king's blood. Skaggos is really close to the wall. The Free Folk, the Night's Watch, and everyone who lives close to the wall knows that Stannis gives people with king's blood to the fire. Talk about kings spread really fast, especially when it involved human sacrifices, kinslaying, and burning the weirwood. He will also need to find a way to get Osha, a wilding woman who is charged to protect Rickon, who believe that the old gods are trying to talk to Bran and maybe Rickon, to trust a southern man she never met, who follows a different king and a different god with Rickon's life. And even if she trusted him, or Davos decide to kidnap Rickon, there is still Shaggy Dog, who will rip Davos to pieces. The Southerners Shaggy knew are Maester Luwin and the Freys. Luwin caged the wolves in the Godswood, and the Freys helped Ramsay and wanted to kill the wolves. Magic or no, Shaggy will kill anyone who wants to take Rickon, or smell like the South. Melisandre is the crown. Even though her followers think she is wise, she's not. She has no plan. She is just sitting there, preaching for the Red God and getting everyone to hate them. She just assumed that R'hllor will just come and save them if enough people believed in him. She sees visions that she assumes correct and tries to force an interpretation that fits her narrative, without ever considering she might be wrong. Melisandre assumes she can see threats against her life, but she can't. She can only seize them when someone is plotting to kill her, like Cresson and Davos. But if someone heard about Stannis' death and decided in the moment to kill her to get revenge for the Seven, or if war happened and she is in the middle of it, she can't see that shit. She assumes she understands the Red God's magic, so she thinks she's untouchable. The others are the Stranger, the god of death. His hand turned black, and he loses his fingers, one by one, a metaphor for the god of death losing his power, and the dead are rising with black hands. Everyone of the Seven, in Stannis' side, is a corrupt false version of the Seven they burn. Just like you can't have light without shadows, you can't give a sacrifice to R'hllor without giving one to the great other. R'hllor got the full 7 in the south, so the great other must get his full 7 in the north.